Do you think Google, Apple, Tesla or Amazon are the powerful companies of all the times? Then you never heard about East India Company. It was a British company formed in 1600 and lasted till 1874. East India Company gained power and ruled over subcontinent. This company was so powerful and had its own army. Company had a trade monopoly on tea business. Initially, East India Company was formed to trade in countries adjacent to Indian Ocean. Later it expanded its operations till Hong Kong. It was biggest trading corporation of its time. East India Company had 3 presidencies of its own private army, consisted of 260,000 personnel, twice in number than British Army. The company monopoly over many businesses affect the trade balance in the region, and in disguise of trade they implemented pro-English policies in the world. If we see history, British rule can be seen in many countries of the world, and you must have heard this sentence that sun never sets in British Empire. East India Company played a major role to establish British Empire. The East India Company was not founded by a single person, but rather by a group of merchants and investors who came together to form a joint stock company for the purpose of establishing trade with the East Indies. The initial group of merchants and investors included prominent figures such as John Lancaster, William Lancaster, Sir Thomas Smythe, and many others. The East India Company was formed in 1600 and was granted a royal charter by Queen Elizabeth I, giving it the right to trade in the Indian Ocean. That is how East India Company was born in year 1600. The first voyage of the English East India Company was led by James Lancaster, who set sail from Portsmouth, England, in 1601 with a fleet of 3 ships, the Red Dragon, Hector, and Ascension. The voyage was organized for the purpose of establishing trade with the Spice Islands, Indonesia, and the Far East, as well as for the purpose of exploring potential territories for settlement. The fleet arrived in the Indonesian islands in early 1602, where they encountered Portuguese traders who controlled much of the spice trade in the region. Despite initial difficulties, the EIC was able to establish a factory, or a trading post, on the island of Bantam and soon began trading in spices, textiles, and other goods. The first voyage was largely successful and marked the beginning of the EIC's trade operations in Asia, which would eventually lead to the establishment of the British Empire in India. Over the next few centuries, the EIC would become one of the largest and most powerful trading companies in the world, playing a significant role in shaping the history of Britain, India, and the wider world. After their successful first voyage of Indonesia, East India Company noted that subcontinent or India is a big market and they should also try luck there. Company was also inspired by Portuguese profit earned in India. So, the ship named Hector was sent to India in April 1607 AD. It was the biggest trading ship of its time. It had to reach India after traveling 10,000 miles. Hector was loaded with 110 staff personnel and 24 guns apart from trading goods. Hector was the first direct English ship to India. Captain William Hawkins was the ship's captain. In 1608 AD, it reached Surat, India. Surat was a Mughal-controlled port city in southern Gujarat, on the maritime trading circuit with the Persian Gulf. But the British were but one amongst many other Europeans seeking to find favor with the Mughals, with the Dutch and particularly the Portuguese dominant. The Hector proceeds to Agra, carrying a letter of introduction from King James I, with a blank space for the name of the Mughal emperor. It transpired that the Emperor Jahangir spoke Turkish and liked to drink, just like Hawkins, and they got on famously. After getting Jahangir the emperor's favor, Company was hopeful about their future as India was amongst the richest countries of the world. Another small incident made Company prominent. A small naval battle, but with historic impact. Also known as the Battle of Suvali, a naval battle commences off the coast of Suvali near the Surat, and the victory for the East India Company galleons led by Captain Best and the famous Red Dragon, over 4 Portuguese galleons, marks the beginning of the ascent of the East India Company's presence in India. The battle convinces the East India Company to establish a small navy to safeguard their commercial interests from other European powers and also from pirates. This small beginning is regarded as the root of the modern Indian Navy.